It's exactly 2 minutes past 8 here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. Big stories brought to you by Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready? And Latex Foam, your partner for life. So like Rex Omar sings in the background, everybody likes money. They say money makes the world go round. The Bible even says money is the root of all evil. Some say money answereth all things. That's why we are dedicating the entire morning, this morning, to talk about the people who keep our money. They've been in a lot of trouble over the past 2 years. Gladly, we can say a lot of that is behind us, but still, there's a lot to discuss. Our guest this morning is Alhassan Andani. He's MD for Stanbic Bank, and we are talking about the safety of our money when we leave it in the bank. Mr. Andani, good morning once again. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's great for you to be here. So, how is the banking sector doing these days?
I should say that year to date, it's quite strong performance. We've seen deposits grow. We've seen loans to the private sector picking up. We've seen a lot of banking products and services being rolled out by various banks. So back to business and strong.
Are we out of the woods yet?
I would say we're out of the woods. The main banking sector is out of the woods. Yeah.
When you say the main banking sector, what do you mean?
Look, I think we always have to put this banking thing in perspective. That if you look at the top 12, top 14 banks who controlled, call it 80% of the deposits and loans and advances in the system, even prior to the banking crisis, were pretty strong banks, doing extremely well. So we had the whole lot looking after the 10, 15% of the industry that were struggling. So that sector of the business, the stronger part of the business had always been doing very well. And that performance has even been enhanced with the new capitalization. More capital has been brought in. Governance has been strengthened, and products have been proper aligned. So that's what I mean, the core business sector. Yeah.
I love the way you put it in terms of, the first 12 to 15, and then there's a lot there and a number of others. Currently, would you say there are too many banks?
I wouldn't say that. I think our economy is still a very fragmented economy. And therefore, we need to have the banks that will speak and build specializations to meet every segment of the market and meet their banking needs. So I wouldn't say there are too many banks. We have, 26 banks now?
Yeah. Yes. It's interesting because Nigeria, that has a much larger population, 190 million, has 30 banks, and some say that we can still do better.
I think if you look at the Nigerian banks, these are massive banks. I always say that if you take probably the top 4 bank the fourth bank in Nigeria, the capitalization of that bank alone is probably the total capitalization of all the 26 banks in Ghana. So they are massive banks. So even if they are 30, they do have a national footprint and depth, which is significant. We are probably 26, but again, you have to look at where we are concentrated in what I call the Golden Triangle, Kumasi, Takoradi, Accra, and we still need to reach out to larger parts of the country and to appeal and have products and services for a broader segment of the economic population.
Does that mean we have space for more banks?
I think we have to be careful when we say whether we have space for more banks. I would say where we are, it's probably getting optimum, and as we grow bigger, you'd find even banks looking more and more alike, and then you'll have conversations that would lead even to further consolidation. But this would be market-driven initiatives, not, but I think we should just be careful in terms of training other operators into this market.
And because we've heard talk of some person saying that, it will be interesting to upgrade some of the savings and loans or some of the insurance houses, for instance, setting up banks. Do you think it's a bad idea?
It's all dependent on the market segment you want to get into, the capital you will throw at it, the governance you will throw at it, and the people. I think we probably rushed into most of these banks without the people, without the requisite capital, and not very clear of our market segments. But again, whoever wants to come in will, of course, do the due diligence. And in the new dispensation we have, I'm sure you would have certainly a lot of hurdles to clear with the regulator and the relevant authorities.
When you say new dispensation, what has happened now? What has changed that we are not seeing?
No, I mean significantly a lot of change. The central bank has been very clear. The directives and controls and stepped up supervision of banks is come to stay and can only get better. So I think that, and also licensing requirements and post-licensing monitoring of performance would be much, much tighter. The roles and responsibilities of executive management, roles and responsibilities of board of directors is just, been tightened and will be monitored. So I think that's the kind of new dispensation we will be that will be built upon and improved as we go along.
There, of course, there's still a lot of questions about the old dispensation that we had earlier. And some would ask, does the Association of Bankers do any peer review on the individual banks?
Look, the association is, we know each other. We are operators. We are operators. We collaborate on operational matters. We collaborate on the law. We collaborate on regulatory issues that comes and how it impacts business. But in terms of review, we send lots of returns to the central bank, and that's the tools that they use to kind of monitor in depth the performance of any particular individual bank. But the association itself wouldn't do peer reviews. Of course, for competitive reasons, we do look at financial statements that come out. We look at market operations and kind of have a view of who is doing what. But that's where it ends. But in terms of the in-depth analysis and performance gaps, that's what the central bank will see from the several banking supervision reports and returns that we send to them.
But it still gives you an idea of who is doing well and who is not doing well.
Oh yes. If you look at whether it's interim financials, year-end financials, you have a good idea who is doing well and who is not doing well.
So did you see?
I'd say we saw it. I mean, for us, and again, coming back to peer review, I always remind people about the asset quality review that was done by the central bank itself. This was really, for me, the seminal study that showed us that the industry was not in good shape. And therefore, we needed to then have one-on-one conversations with the central bank. This was 2015. So most people would see the final conclusion 2017, 2018, but we actually did from the peer review, from the asset quality review that was conducted by the central bank, know that there was a lot, to be fixed, and people were given time to fix, and those that couldn't be fixed, that got into a kind of hiatus, had to be kind of then dealt with by the regulator in the manner that we saw towards the end of 2018.
So we knew.
Yes, we knew. Those of us in the industry knew. We're managing it.
And
yeah.
So what did that lead us to do in the Banking Association?
Well, I think the Banking Association, we did a lot. So, for example, the Banking Association led and brought to fore the impact of the government sector on the banking industry. So for example, debts that were owed by government utilities to the banks, the energy debts, the petroleum sector debts. The Banking Association played a key role working with the Minister of Finance and the central bank to ensure that that particular exposure, which was quite large, impacting literally all the industry, was very cleverly dealt with. And that's where ESLA came out from. That's where all the restructuring and of Volta River Authority, some of the studies that came out from ECG came from. So we did a lot up until, as I said, there was just at the tail end, those who didn't have, who could not be saved from all the intervening measures that were taken by the association and the Bank of Ghana and the government. Some kind of resolution had to happen. Yeah.
So we were not able to finish the resolutions.
Well, the resolutions were not entirely down to the energy sector debts and the petroleum sector debts. There were other, practices that led to some of the individual problems other banks had. That was outside what the association could do or the government could do. These were individual decisions taken within these institutions that needed closer attention.
But these people say government still owed them.
Well, again, I would not be in a position to deal with that, but we do know that banks had exposures to construction firms, which construction firms were clients of government. But I remember there were studies done where central bank asked us to send returns on all contractors who owed money, and the total quantum of it was taken up into consideration before the resolution measures that were taken. So government, through the central bank, had an idea how much was the total construction sector exposure to the banks that were resolved. Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that if these debts had been settled early, we wouldn't have had what happened with the banking sector?
Well, look here. Once you make out facilities and they are paid on time, on schedule, it always gives you a different muzzle to play, and therefore the delays. Yes, I would say the delays weakened some of the institutions. Yeah, because when you're expecting some inflows and the inflows don't come out of debt service and or other flows, then you'll have to keep the business running, looking at other sources, which other sources may not necessarily have been the areas that you want. Probably pick up expensive deposits when you didn't need to pick up expensive deposits, and maybe get into other fund management or fundraising activities that would be inimical to your business. So paying your facilities, and especially those large chunky things on time, were critical to probably weakening some of the institutions.
Would it have made a difference?
Oh, no, if these debts were paid on time, they would have made a massive difference. Made a massive difference. Because remember, when these things when a debt is supposed to be paid and it's not paid on time, you start to make provisions, and the provision, it means you're impeding your balance sheet's performance. And if you're impeding your balance sheet performance, you're becoming more and more inefficient. And if you're becoming more and more inefficient, your costs is overriding your income, and all sorts of consequences can fall out of that. And liquidity is really the core. So if you have large quantities of assets, loans and advances out there which are not coming back, and managing your liquidity properly, you simply become probably illiquid.
So the banks would have survived.
Some could have survived. But as I said, there were a lot of other internal decisions taken which we can talk about. I'm not privy to it, which of course the authorities did see and evaluated and took the decisions they did take. But again, look here, keep everything running smoothly, and you wouldn't have problems.
40 minutes to the top of the hour, past the hour, here on the Super Morning Show. Enjoy. 99.7 FM. Our guest this morning is Alhassan Andani. He's MD of Stanbic Bank. He's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. We are talking about all things money and all things banking, as Mr. Andani has been gracious enough to join us this morning. Now, you've gotten to a point where it comes down to the personal decisions of some of these directors. Would you say that these directors were unqualified or unethical?
Difficult to say. I think the jury is still out there. The investigations are still ongoing. But directors and managers and leaders of these banks have a lot to answer for, and also responsible for. We run these banks on a daily basis, and you have huge responsibilities to your shareholders. You have huge responsibility to your clients, and indeed to the larger economy. So And this information is all about governance. Who should know what, and when should that person know, and when you know, what action do you take? All of that is in the mix, and I'm sure when the investigations are all done, we will know who knew what and didn't do the right thing.
Were they just greedy?
Look, I think all of that is in the mix. You can't be specific. I haven't seen any particular report from any one of those that can. But as I said, the jury is out there. If you take the business decisions that are questionable, you can throw everything into the mix, and be careful what you say.
Of course. You see, so because Ken Thompson, the head of the LX Finance, said that the majority, and I quote, the majority of these banks are kaput due to the pure and unadulterated greed and recklessness of their shareholders and directors. Some would say he's calling a spade a spade.
Well, it's quite tough to be that. I don't think anybody would willfully bring down his business. If you've set up a business to do well, you will not willfully do it. Yeah, bring it down. But did you have the knowledge to do it? Did you have the skill to do it? Did you know when the red flags were coming and how to resolve it? Did you call for the right attention or the right help from the right sources? So those are all decisions which could have been missed, and which resulted in those the actions that we're taking. But I don't think anybody would willfully set up a business to willfully collapse it. So it's about vigilance. It's about putting the right people all across the institution to tell you what is going well and what is not going well, and particularly when the risk issues come, know where to go for the resolution very quickly. But if you kind of mull over it, take no action or even hide it, then it comes to the ethics.
What did you do differently at Stanbic?
I'll say Stanbic and probably your top 14 banks, as I said, who were not touched at all, the top 20 banks that were not touched at all. It's all about governance. Your shareholders and set you up with very clear objectives. And the banking, you're given a banking license, a banking law with very clear provisions, what to do and what not to do. And again, at the end of the day, it's about people. Who do you get in as directors to guide what you do, and who do you get in executive management to run, and who do you get in across the whole spectrum of the bank to do the right thing? So it's a whole mix of that. And then, of course, the external environment, the law, the banking regulator, and the regulations that govern the industry. All of that have to play their part. So what we did, or what we would say most of the successful banks did well, was to hold very dear to these principles and enforce them. Raise up your hand when there's a red flag. Look, banking is a tough job, so you got to juggle so many things at the same time. But make sure that you are getting the information out timeously, you are getting it out to the right people, and taking the decisions tough, whichever way the sword falls. Save the customer. The customer is the reason why you are there. The customer's deposits that we take runs into several multiples of our total shareholders' funds. Of our shareholders' capital. So you have a responsibility to those customers, and whatever you do, you ensure that you're serving their interests. So those are the kind of things to do. Just keep the client in focus, whatever you do, and the shareholders. Look, these are very serious people who've got businesses, especially for those of us who have businesses straddling different economies and around the world. Your reputation in this country impacts the reputation of this institution across the world. So you will have to uphold the highest principles, highest levels of integrity, and conduct business in the right way.
Is that what made the difference, the international reputations?
I would look, the international reputation is given, but what made the difference? Your day-to-day practices of good governance, of good business, of diligence.
Wow. So who then is to blame for the saga?
Look, at the end of the day, the boards and management of these institutions had a day-to-day responsibility and have to step up and take responsibility.
So what should be done to them?
Well, again, I'm not sitting in the court of law. I'm not the regulator. The regulator knows what to do about these things.
Well, the regulator and law enforcement
agencies. That's what I'm saying. But governance is also the external stimuli. The stimuli is the law. The stimuli is the regulator who has set up that industry and regulates and monitors it. So they have responsibilities there.
But you see, you mentioned the regulator.
Yeah.
Should the Bank of Ghana be fingered as contributing to the collapse?
Look, I would say from where I sit that the asset quality review that really threw up these was commissioned and conducted by, and the results communicated to us by the Bank of Ghana. So it's about an institution knowing when to pull the brakes. So as an institution, they knew when to pull the brakes. And did they brake hard enough? What did they have to do? And again, remember, the financial sector is at the heart of everything. So you just have to be very careful the decisions you take around there. They regulated it up to the point we had a crisis. They knew when to pull the brakes and started to pull the brakes and resolved it. And I should say that if we look at other resolutions that have happened around the world where depositors lost pools of money, for banking with the wrong banks, this hasn't happened here. People have had to, again, keep the customer in focus. And even though we're operating as private banks and making money for our private shareholders, the central bank and the government had to come in and look here. These depositors probably were unwilling or unaware, victims of what was going on. So they saved that situation. Again, might have an impact on the physical, but it was the right thing to do. And then probably going forward, as I said, with the new dispensation and all the communication coming out to clients to be aware who they deal with and how they deal, again, the community or the community of depositors and people who bank with us will have to make better choices.
Now, here's Dr. Elsie Adowaji speaking at the Ghana Bar Association annual general conference in 2018, and she says it was unfortunate that a culture of regulatory forbearance at the Bank of Ghana in the preceding years had encouraged such atrocious practices. You'd agree?
Yes, regulatory forbearance to the extent of what we call single obligor dispensations, and also you run into difficulty and you can go and give a plan to the central bank to say, this is my plan to get out of this difficulty, and they come along with you. They don't pull the plug. That's why I say it's a very sensitive industry. And just when you pull the plug, and how prepared are you before you pull the plug? Yeah, so she had a point there. I think she was quite right.
So they could have prevented this?
It's they could have prevented it, but the consequences of those preventions is just what we have to look at. And whether we should have waited for 8, 12 banks or dealt with it one at a time, it's all out there, but difficult to say.
Do you think they should have dealt with them one at a time?
I thought they should have dealt with them one at a time rather than wait. But again, it's about forbearance, about believing the plans that people brought to you to get out of trouble.
For those who may not understand, how would that have looked like, dealing with them one at a time?
Dealing with them one at a time would just be, we've got clear measurables of how a good bank looks like, and how you should meet your client demands and what you're picking from the clients, how you are laying things out. They are very clear. So once you look at it and this entity is not meeting up, our capital adequacy ratios, where were you in terms of your capital adequacy ratio? Where were you in terms of liquidity coverage? Where were you in terms of, your non-performing assets? And all of those things were out there and could have been reasons why you should take a particular decision at a particular time on a particular bank. But again, as I said, it's all about trying to help people overcome some of the difficulties. Were they too lenient? Maybe yes. You can say that to a very large extent they were very lenient in trying to help people out of their difficulties.
So that we won't have woken up one day and 7 banks are no more.
Yeah, well, we did wake up and 7 banks were no more, so that is history now.
24 minutes past 8 here on the Super Morning Show, Joy 99.7 FM. Alhassan Andani is the MD of Stanbic Bank. He's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. We've been talking about the banking sector cleanup and some of the issues that we have had to walk through as a nation and as a financial sector. Now, remember, the financial sector, according to the finance minister, hires about 50,000 people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you agree with that figure?
Yes, I agree with that figure.
Yeah. So apart from it being the engine of growth in other sectors, it also hires so many people.
Very highly qualified people.
Very highly qualified people at that. So, Mr. Andani, when you look at these people who have had to come home and the constant complaints of not receiving their monies and all of that, what runs through your mind?
I think where I sit now, my heart goes out to the depositors. So and I said we're highly qualified people. So if you are highly qualified and you're brought in, supposed to do the right thing and you didn't do it, and you've imperiled or you have endangered the savings of the poor households, from where I sit, my attention is first and foremost, how do I fix those households? If you knew what you had to do your job and do it well, and we didn't have to come to this. So that's first and foremost why you run a very good organization, is so that at least you can keep your job. But if you run it down, and I think from where we all sat was to make sure we had a population that will still have confidence in the banking sector, and therefore the plight of the depositors who had really trusted us, as I said, and brought these monies and played with us, who are now almost at the verge of losing their life savings, for me was the number one, and that's where I would keep my focus until the market situation returns, and then later we can deal with the
with the employees.
Yeah.
So if I could take you back to what you were saying about the regulator, what percentage of responsibility would you assign to the Bank of Ghana?
I cannot assign. I'm still regulated. Remember, we are all still regulated by the central bank. So I cannot assign any percentage of responsibility. They have taken charge of it. They are fixing it.
Because you see, many analysts have said that they have failed to sanction the officials who were involved in this regulatory forbearance I talked about. So they may not even be justified in sanctioning banks and directors if they have not cleaned house, in quote.
Look, this whole governance area has the legal framework of the country that should deal with this. We also have the Bank of Ghana as a regulator to deal with it, and several other external factors that should look at the whole causative factors, just so that we can fix the market and not have a repeat of what happened. I believe a lot of work is going on, but again, the focus of everybody is, as I said, the financial sector is extremely important to the economy. Get it back on track, get the confidence back in, and all the issues you've raised, I have no doubt, are being dealt with at the right quarters.
What would be for the sake of the financial sector and the confidence that people have, what would you expect to see in terms of Bank of Ghana action?
Well, the Bank of Ghana action up until recapitalization, new capital requirements, directives, new governance rules and corporate governance put in, that going forward they'll hold the line and the banks will comply, and the right sanctions and commendations will be made as we progress. And again, our shareholders would look at how we operate, and there will be a lot of market activity to ensure that the highest principles of business is upheld. So I think Bank of Ghana should just ensure that they nurse the situation out to a much more permanent, robust, financial performance, and allow the law to deal with the history.
And they shouldn't be too lenient this time?
Look, too lenient is not the word to use in business. You got to hold to the line, and carry on with it. When you say too lenient, then to how many, and what's the overall gross impact of that leniency? Leniency is not a business term. It's a discriminatory term. Yeah.
You see, because people argue for leniency, because even though it's not a business term, because they say allow these businesses to grow, particularly since they are locally owned.
Within the context of the law, within the context of the framework of what the business looks like. So for example, if you take Standard Bank Ghana or Stanbic, which I know well, we are only a few branches a few years down the line. We've grown into a tier 1 bank. We didn't rush it. We kept all the principles of what a good business should look like as a small bank, and we're still keeping those principles as a big bank. And you can say that for a whole raft of other banks, Carl, Fidelity, all of those started small and held to the line and grew, and they are now big banks, and they're going to still hold to the line. So it doesn't mean I always say we should not say local means mediocre. No, local is not mediocre. Local means you know the system well, even better than people who are coming in from outside, but it doesn't mean mediocre. Sometimes we tend to say because these are local banks, they're allowed to be mediocre. I don't think so. Because most of the banks that are performing in Ghana and doing extremely well are managed by Ghanaians, same guy within the same Ghanaian context.
So what makes the difference? Because, Stanbic is managed by you, just like any other local bank.
Look, what makes a difference is the collective responsibility of, as I said, the governance structure that has been put up. And again, the ownership structures. If you have sometimes ownership structures can adversely impact governance. So if you have a very large dominant owner who, sort of runs through all those structures, one goes wrong, it just runs through all the other structures the same dominant person controls. But if you take Standard Bank, we don't have one dominant owner. We're regulated by the Bank of Ghana. We're regulated by the Reserve Bank of South Africa. The governance structures work. You just can't blink. You can blink. The governance structures work. So there are extenuating circumstances, and sometimes I think ownership structures of these organizations could play a role. So if you take local banks or local companies, for example, it's owned by just the owner. The owner put up the money. So everything happens around the owner, and therefore that kind of compromises governance. Governance is being able to speak up, to say what is right, do what is right, criticize what is wrong, unearth things that are going, not going too well. But again, when you have an owner-dominated organization, that compromises governance. And
then the related parties come in?
That's where, again, dominance comes in. That related parties all speak to single party owning significant stake and taking all the key decisions and being responsible for all those government controls.
It's 29 minutes at the top of the hour here on the Super Morning Show on Joe 99.7 FM. Our guest this morning is Alhassan Andani. He is MD of Stanbic Bank. He's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. We've been asking you to send in your questions on 0244 340 437. Please keep them coming. You can also tweet at us at Joy997 FM. Go on our Facebook page, Joy 99.7 FM. We take a quick batch of messages. We'll be back. When we come back, I'm very curious about this point. Now, there was a bank's restructuring in 1989, which saw end part and a number of banks go down again. There was the Bank for Housing and Construction debacle in 2000. Have we come to the end of hearing that banks have closed down in the country? Really? And what must we do if we really want to come to the end of that? Alhassan Andani will answer that for us when we come back.
In partnership with Joy FM and National Theatre, Roverman Productions presents an Ever-White play titled I Want Your Wife.
You do not fool me, Abner. You don't fool me. You think I do not know that you've always wanted to marry your boy for his money?
And why not? I married you for nothing. I may as well marry your boy for money.
Hey, Abner, when did you get to be like this?
I got to be like this when you sat down in church like an Egyptian mummy that had smoked weed and said nothing when that girl said our marriage was a mistake.
I Want Your Wife shows on the 6th, 7th, 13th, and 14th July 2019. Venue, National Theatre. Rates, 80 Ghana cedis. Time, 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. each day. Tickets available at Joy FM and all usual outlets. For deliveries, WhatsApp 050-554-6030. Sponsors, Bond Savings and Loans, Crush Fruit Juice, Old Mutual Life Assurance Company Limited, and Passion Air. Media partners, Adum TV, Joy Prime, Joy News, MyJoyOnline.com, Roverman Productions. Be the difference.
Here's what people are saying about the GCB Easy Pick.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
It just makes
It
sense.
just
It
makes
just
sense.
makes sense.
Yes, saving makes a lot more sense now. GCB Bank will pay for anything you buy from phones, TVs, air conditioners, generators, solar equipment to roofing sheets from any GCB partner shop. And you can pay back later at a reduced price of up to 25% in discounts. Simply walk into any GCB partner shop, pick up what you want at a GCB discount price and fill a form. GCB will pay for you so you can pay back later in installments. Go, get it sooner, get it cheaper, pay later. GCB Easy Pick, it just makes sense. Terms and conditions apply.
GCB Bank, your bank for life.
The Electoral Commission will undertake a revision of the voters' register in all the district offices of the Electoral Commission from Monday, 17th June 2019 to Sunday, 7th July 2019 between the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day and including Saturdays and Sundays during the registration. The objective of the registration is to afford Ghanaians who have attained the age of 18 years and others who are more than 18 years but for various reasons could not register during the previous registration to do so. A person qualifies to register as a voter if he or she is a Ghanaian of a sound mind who has attained 18 years and is a resident or an ordinary resident in an electoral area where he or she would like to vote. There will be additional registration centers in difficult to access electoral areas. The public should contact their district and regional offices to help them to locate the registration centers. A person who is qualified to register but whose name is not already on the register will be required to show proof of eligibility by submitting any of the following documents: a Ghanaian passport, national ID card or the Ghana card, driver's license or an old voter's ID card. Applicants who do not have any of the identification documents listed above are required to find 2 people who are already registered voters to complete documents to guarantee their registration. Remember, the limited voters registration will begin from Monday, 17th June 2019 to Sunday, 7th July 2019 between the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day. Register to vote. Your vote is your power. Register to vote.
Coffee in your cup and joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best bet on Joy 99.7 FM.
Twenty-four minutes at the top of the hour here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. Daddy Lumba says it's about money. Yes, Sikasem. I agree. But let me tell you something about your money. The days of making payments with cash are truly over. Guaranteed Trust Bank Ghana Limited introduces a groundbreaking way to pay: mobile money payments on GT Bank POS devices. Now, you can make payments for your goods and services via MTN Mobile Money, Vodafone Cash, Tigo Cash, or Airtel Money on any GT Bank POS. Wondering how? It's simple. At the payment point, opt to pay with mobile money on a GT Bank POS device. Provide the merchant with your phone number and the payment alert authenticated on the GT Bank POS device will be sent to your phone. Authorize the transaction on your phone with your PIN, et voila. Merchant receives payment instantly. Making payments just got more exciting. Pay effortlessly and conveniently with mobile money on GT Bank POS devices today. Businesses, shops, and merchants should contact 0504 100 282 for their GT Bank POS devices. Guaranteed Trust Bank. Would you rather bank with us? And the Vodafone Bossu bundle just got bigger. Aside the Bossu weekend offer, Vodafone has taken another boss step, introducing the Bossu daily offer, the Bossu of all daily offers. Sign up to the Vodafone Bossu daily offer for just 2 Ghana cedis and enjoy 100 minutes for calls to all networks plus 100 megabytes valid for 24 hours. Yes, it's real, pan. Just dial *5588# now to subscribe to the Bossu daily offer and spend your day like a boss. So our guest this morning, like I said earlier, is Alhassan Andani. He's managing director for Stanbic Bank. He's also president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. Now, the question that we had when we went on the break, when we were about to go on the break, was that, and this is, I think, the third I can count now. 1989 with the bank restructuring, and then 2000 the Bank for Housing and Construction saga, and there's 2017 into 2018, which is even bigger than banks. Can we say never again?
I think everybody would wish we could say never again. But remember, the world economy, the Ghanaian economy is evolving and evolving very fast. And, you know, if you look at banking crisis, look at the 2008 global banking crisis. That was banking crisis at its highest level. And it's about continuous monitoring of the market evolution, and how we track and manage that market. So we are all hopeful that all the lessons that we've learned from the FinSap days to what has happened now will make that kind of recurrence less likely. It's all about all of us being vigilant, the law being vigilant, the regulator being vigilant, and the banks themselves, the businesses themselves being vigilant, and clients, customers particularly, making the right choices. So I think all what has happened will make us or make the future occurrence less likely. You know, if we look at FinSap, it was all about government controls again. You know, government at that time dictated how much of loans should go into agriculture, into manufacturing, into commerce. They were strict sort of boundaries that you couldn't cross, and most of the ERP, economic recovery program loans that came in, guarantees, then exchange rate moved. So it was all the interplay of government, private sector, and controls that now what happened? That's not the reason now it didn't happen, because nobody wanted to repeat the issues of the late 80s and early 90s. Now this was a bit more free market, but free market again, take away the leniency, be more clinical in dealing with issues, don't postpone anything. So again, I think we're rolling on with the lessons. If it was the lessons of the late 80s, early 90s that caused this, then we say we didn't learn anything. But certainly none of those things in 1980 happened. Now, you know, most of this were rather open market, and we made choices which were wrong, and they have tightened them up. So again, it will take a long time, and probably most attached would and say it shouldn't happen again. But hey, market developments are market developments.
It's ironic. At first we were too strict, then we were not strict enough.
So you have to get a balance somewhere. You have to get a balance somewhere.
But looking at the remedial action, would you say this was the most cost-effective one?
For the broader economy, for households, because most of the costs went back to the physical. So that is to say that government had to put out money to pay the depositors who could not be paid by this bank. So if you look at it on the broader economy, that's the most optimal. Nobody lost savings. But if you look at it on the impact of government had to probably forgo other, things that they would have done with that money in order to save the larger economy. But in Dagbani, we have a saying that you have to have a head on your shoulders before you can chew your corn. So probably that's the option the government took. That's keep the households going, keep the confidence in the financial sector, and then we can rebuild. So, yeah, it was, for me, if I look at it from the broader economy, I think that was the best way to resolve these issues.
Some would say the borrowing rather affects the economy.
Well, again, within measure. And to the extent that particularly this borrowing came back to households who would put it back in and put it to work, it will generate its returns in the long run. But of course, you're forgoing other things you could have done. You could have built more schools, you could have built more hospitals, and that kind of stuff. But I don't think it meant more borrowing. It just means more. You suspend things that could have done with the borrowing, and rather put it in this, which you probably didn't plan for, but you need to save the economy. You need to save the household income and savings.
So after all that has happened, who takes ultimate responsibility?
I think responsibility, as I said, still rests with the owners, managers and directors of these banks that failed. And they are liquidated. I mean, they are people resolving these banks, and we'll try to recover as much as we can. Sometimes it's the cost of running a big economy.
The cost of running a big economy.
Yeah.
That brings me to the minimum capital requirements.
Yeah.
400 million. Was it a mistake?
No, I don't think the 400 million was a mistake. I don't think 400 million was a mistake. I mean, this economy is growing. And I made a point that if we take one of the fourth largest bank in Nigeria and looked at their total capitalization, it's probably bigger than the total capitalization of Ghana. That's not where we should be when we have an oil and gas industry that is growing leaps and bounds, when we have an energy sector that is growing in leaps and bounds, when you have mining sector that is growing leaps and bounds, and we want to see local content. So you have to have domestic banks that are able, with capital, to support in enterprises to actually meaningfully participate in these growing sectors of the economy. Otherwise, we'll just bring in external capital, external expertise, and all the wealth would flow out of the country. So I think the larger capital was not a mistake. And again, if you look at the banks that are doing well, they are well in excess of that 400. It's only 400 minimum. It's only minimum. For those that have seen the opportunities in Ghana, they are operating with shareholder funds far in excess of 400 million.
The microfinance sector. First of all, are they related in any way? What's happening now and what's happened some 2 years ago?
The microfinance is microfinance. When you say related, I think that one is sad because of the households and the level of savings that went into them and how this thing has panned out. But that's why you don't want to have big problems with even the bigger sector. So sometimes the difficulties in even the bigger banks may have impacted the confidence of savers within the microfinance, and that could have also caused some of the problems that they experienced.
So they could be related.
They are related.
They are
related. Yeah, they're related. They're related. Confidence is confidence. So, I mean, think about it. If you went and put money in a big bank that you thought would never have an issue, and they have had an issue, now you have it with your neighborhood microfinance, you're going to go for it. And if everybody queued up for the money the same day, they would not be able to meet withdrawal requests, because certainly they manage these funds by also, laying off some loans, and you can't get all the loans, the day the people have come for the money. So you need a kind of managed situation to be able to meet client requests. And when the market is spooked, people coming for our deposits are more than those bringing back the money that they have borrowed from the banks or the microfinance institutions.
And government indebtedness?
On the microfinance sector? I don't think the government indebtedness in the microfinance sector is that big. I know that some microfinance companies may have lent to contractors, because sometimes when these contractors come to banks and the kind of things that we require them to bring for us to give them larger formal credit, they are not willing or don't even have it in the right kind of format. So they go to a microfinance where they can take this facility. Yes, and those ones could actually hurt them. So they probably may have played in sectors that was not, they were not qualified to play in. Yeah.
Now, is it worrying that, since we've dealt with failure of microfinance and banks themselves, is it worrying that some of these directors that we've named are not being prosecuted now?
I think we did mention that the investigations are still ongoing. I am not privy to that, but I do believe that there will be consequences. I mean, some consequence management has to happen.
Okay. Consequences in terms of prosecutions in jail time?
Well, whatever is appropriate to ensure that people who were palpably wrong, are held accountable for the decisions they took, and the law, the regulators, and the lawyers know, or the legal framework knows how to deal with those things. I wouldn't know that.
So there were suspected Ponzi schemes, and then there's Loom and this new wave of people making that. What do you make of this?
I think for me, we should go out on a massive education of the Ghanaian public. Some of the stories that you hear when the stories of Men's Gold and the Loom and all of that coming up, it just doesn't look right from finance, from personal ethical behavior, nothing. If you have somebody promising to pay you 10% per month on any kind of financial transaction, please, you don't have to go to business school to know that that is not possible. You should question your own conscience to be able to do that. And I apologize but again, we should do a massive public education on what the basic framework of finance looks like. You cannot beat the market, and the market doesn't offer those rates. And if you have banks, and we love our customers, we don't offer those things, and somebody comes and offering 20 times what your bank offers you. You are taking on 20 times risk of placing the money in a bank. So I think that I'd like to see a lot more education of our households and firms that participate in that kind of schemes. The stories are quite obvious for you not even to get in.
Will the association be doing this education?
Well, our association will deal with our banking clients, but again, we will do financial literacy. Most of the banks have social corporate responsibility programs on financial literacy, because all of these have a contagion effect on banks as well. Because sometimes people find it difficult, to distinguish between the schemes and the various operators within the financial sector. So the bad behavior of one impacts everybody else. Even though you might try to say you do this and you do that, but people will still vote with their feet. So to the extent that we can apply most of our resources to do financial literacy, we do that already, and I know some other banks are also doing financial literacy.
And we are very, very excited, for instance, about the Stanbic Bank Business Breakfast meeting that we have every now and then,
exactly.
which is part of some of these things. Yeah. But you see, would you say that in these cases as well, people are being greedy?
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. You should question your own personal ethics. That's a long way of saying greedy.
Alhassan Andani here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. I can't leave off the issue of suspected Ponzi schemes without mentioning what's happened in the Zoe Outreach Embassy on Sunday. This group of companies in the financial sector, headed by a pastor, has seen a run by its customers who are chasing him to church. When you hear a story like that, being a player in the financial space, what can we do?
I can only say that we should hold people's respect for us dear and sacrosanct. So a pastor is held in high repute. I mean, and you should hold that, you should regard that kind of respect people have for you as sacrosanct, and therefore not do anything that would let them down. Because people would have gone in there not because it was a great financial, or they didn't even analyze the financial structure. They believe they are pastor, or they believe they are so the kind of individuals who put up their faces to lead these institutions command a lot of public respect, and that respect must be held, in high esteem. You must hold it sacrosanct. Otherwise, that's the kind of situations we have. People trust you, you're their pastor, and you let them down. People trust you, you are the managing director, and you let them down. People trust you, you're the chairman of the board, and you let them down. So this kind of trust that people build in us, and banking, finance, is all about trust. That trust should be sacrosanct.
We trifle with their trust?
We trifle with the trust. If you trifle with the trust, then you are really sort of upstaging the entire economy. Yeah.
Wow. Alhassan Andani here on the Super Morning Show. Now, the microfinance sector is being dealt with. The banking sector has been dealt with. We are looking for 7 billion to deal with the savings and loan sector. How urgent is that cleanup?
I think that's urgent, again, because if you look at the savers there, the depositors there, they are really micro savers, and their situation is probably more dire. That could be their entire life savings sitting with these microfinance institutions, and therefore, any attempt to help them would also be rebuilding households, rebuilding confidence, and probably channeling people to the right sectors of the financial sector.
It's 9 minutes to the top of the hour here on the Super Morning Show. Enjoy 99.7 FM. Our guest in studio is Alhassan Andani. He's MD of Stanbic Bank. He's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. It always draws a smile out of him when I say that. I want to know why. But then we want to say hi to our sponsors. When we come back, we'll be dealing with the impact this has had on the larger economy. And there's a question that I've had that is very common. When will we ever get single-digit interest rates when we are taking loans? We'll deal with that when we come back.
So you wanted that weave, that one that's so long it touches your toes. Got it. A disco light for the room when the sweetheart comes over. Bagged it. Those chrome spinning wheels that will have people at church praying to be you. But though, now how about those mega woofers that will wake up the whole neighborhood? Ordered. Because you've got the card that makes it all possible.
You don't need a bank account to spoil yourself. You can now securely load funds for travel, pay for goods and services online and at your favorite shop, or give your loved ones unending spending options or possibilities with a perfect gift card. Get a Cowbank prepaid card now, because you can.
Cowbank, forward together. The Ministry of Communications and Ghana Data Protection Commission, in collaboration with the Network of African Data Authorities, proudly present the Africa Data Protection and Privacy Conference at the Accra International Conference Center, Ghana.
From 26th to 27th June 2019, join global experts to discuss contemporary issues such as the alignment between privacy and the right to information,
safeguarding of national databases, and the security of personal data,
acceptable national identification, and challenges specific to the region,
artificial intelligence, financial inclusion, among many pertinent issues. Speakers include representatives from the United Nations,
ECOWAS,
Council of Europe, and global experts from the private sector and civil society.
Guest speaker, His Excellency Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, Vice President of Ghana. For information on participation and registration, visit www.ardppc.com
or contact +233 050 185 3955. This message is brought to you by the Ghana Data Protection Commission and partners.
The Malcolm Grand Furniture Sale promo is on. Really? Tell me more. Enjoy 10 to 50% discount on the entire range of home and office furniture. Wow! Exclusive offers you won't find again. I like it. Remember, terms and conditions apply. Malcolm, where Ghana shops.
This is the 12th edition of the Water Africa and West African Building and Construction Exhibition and Seminar Program in Accra, and it's brought to you by Ace Event Management Limited. This program will be held at the Kempinski Gold Coast City Hotel from the 26th to 28th of June 2019. Limited exhibition space is still available, and I know you don't want to miss this. For more information, call 024-851-8390 or visit www.ace-events.com.
Coffee in your cup and joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best bet on Joy 99.7 FM.
It's about money. That's the thrust of this morning's conversation with Alhassan Andani, MD of Stanbic Bank, President of the Ghana Association of Bankers. Appreciates all the contributions you're bringing in, all the questions you're sending in. But if you're looking for a 1, 2, or 3-seater and L-shaped sofa, crafted to the finest details and available in various colors for your home, office, or hotels, Look no further. Latex Foam is your one-stop shop destination, whatever your choice and budget. Latex Foam, your partner for life. Now, social media messages on the Super Morning Show are brought to you by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and Telecel 4G Just a Touch. Telecel offers the fastest internet experience on 4G in the country. There's coverage in Accra, Tema, Ho, Koforidua, Takrady, and Bolgatanga. For the youth, Telecel has Telecel Wave bundles designed to cater for youth lifestyle, starting from as low as 2 cedis 50 pesos. There's also 4G internet service not only on your phone and handheld devices, but also extended for use in offices and homes. And Telecel Fiber Broadband. There's Telecel Fiber Broadband with varied speeds, unlimited and bundled data options and affordable rates, available at Airport Residential, Laboni Rich Cantonments, Jolu, and other locations. So call Telecel on 0303 975 342 or 344, or send us an email on inquiry@telecel4g.com. Telecel, just a touch. Coming back to my guest in studio now, Alhassan Andani. And like we said earlier, what has been the larger impact of the banking saga on the economy?
I think, well, if you were to use the litmus test, which is the GDP numbers announced, the economy is still growing north of 6%. So if you look at the larger economy, as I said, the top banks that controlled 80% of the financial assets and deposits were largely untouched. So the economy continued to power on with the support of those institutions. So the broader economy hasn't really slacked. It hasn't really slacked. The impact of it is just been on the fiscal. I mean, the government having to raise money to bail out these banks. But if you look at growth, whether it's the energy sector, whether it's the petroleum sector, whether it's private capital slowed down a bit because most of the banks had to relook at their capital adequacy, new capital requirements coming in from the central bank before they started to roll out. But you've started to see that growing up. So the larger economy itself hasn't actually slowed down. I mean, 6% growth is probably the fastest around the world now, where growth is under 4%.
But that's a challenge, isn't it? Because it's private capital that creates jobs. So we are seeing growth, but the jobs.
I think the jobs is the big issue. And if anybody says there are no problems with jobs, that person has to recheck the data. And the private sector jobs should grow faster, because I don't think it pays for government to load themselves with, employees when they're not fully engaged and running deficits to pay them. So what is happening in the private sector has to be relooked, and we see what we can do to enable the private sector to expand quick enough to absorb all these teeming graduates coming from our institutions.
A lot of people point to you, the banks. They say you don't lend to the SMEs.
If you look at the SMEs, and all the banks have units set up focused on the SMEs, we do lend to the SMEs, but probably not in the numbers and volumes that are required. But again, it's all about prudence again. Because if you go gung-ho and you're not prudent and you put in monies and lose it, you come back and you'll still be asked the same question. What were you looking before you did this? So it's about prudence. And I think the sectors that worry me is agriculture in an integrated manner. If you can have an integrated financing structure into agriculture that goes all the way from primary production to value addition, then we can absorb a lot of people. But SME as in trade, trading and those kind of things can be a bit difficult, because that really hasn't got the absorptive capacity for employment. So we should deal with specifics instead of the generality of SME, because I know that we do a lot of SME lending.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the SME lending is going in, but you're not going to those areas where jobs will be created there as well.
Rather we channel more SME lending to areas where jobs are created. So, for example, if you had an integrated agricultural sector lending program, you have nucleus farmers, whether they are doing livestock or they're doing crops, growing SMEs who are outgrowers, pouring it into a central processing plant, which is value adding, and then putting it back into the value chain for distribution. And that, just look at the number of people that employs. But if again act as individuals without inner cohesion, then you're really not going to see the impact that you desire.
So you're with the GAB. How about we see more lending into those areas?
No, so for example, the GAB has been collaborating with the central bank and now with the Bank of the Minister of Finance on what we call GESL. GESL is a guarantee scheme that government is working on to be able to give some risk mitigation to banks that will get into agricultural lending. And once we get GESL going, you'd see a lot more flows into agriculture. And again, Ghana Exim has picked up some of these value-adding agricultural enterprises, and they're pushing. We recently had a conversation with them around a cassava to ethanol project, which again is a significant development, which if it succeeds can roll out to other parts of the country, and we see a lot more of such firms coming up.
So how soon should we see GESL being rolled out?
This has still been done. I think it used to be to sit at the Bank of Ghana. We're only recently told it's moved into the Minister of Finance, and I have no timing on that.
Okay.
People at the Minister of Finance should come.
Okay. It's the first time I'm getting a promise from a non-politician, I must say. It's not, it doesn't happen a lot. But I asked the question before we went for our break, and that was about single-digit interest rates. And it's not just really about, it's not as simplistic as that, because we have the reference rates going down, the policy rates going down, inflation rates going down, T-bill rate has gone down. But when we are going to borrow money, it's still very expensive.
Then I'll tell you that we're making progress. When I was in banking, interest rates were 45%. That's crazy. When I got in, middle 80s, it was 45%. Today, interest rates are probably the lowest I've ever seen. The reference rate is 16.3, and you are not you can do below 16 to good names that you can see at the surround business, and probably end at mid 25. But that said, again, it's all about the macros. So once the riskless, which is the government T-bills, comes in sub 10, or sub into single digits, and you see inflation pulling in that direction, you'd almost say that the pattern that we are seeing is leading us into that single digit. We need that single digit, because if you look at the West African, sub-region, we probably still stick out as one of the high interest rate regimes. And if you're going to integrate into that bigger market, you can't produce cocoa at 20% while somebody in Cote d'Ivoire is producing at 11%, and you can compete at the same market. So the trajectory that we're going on now seems to show that if government can hold the lines, and I do hold the hope they do that, and we see inflation pull back and the treasury bill rates pull back, and the parameters, the kind of scheme that we have right now to determine base rates are market related. So it's a certain weight of interbank. It's a certain weight of the treasury bill rate, and it's a certain weight of the policy rate. So all of that tracking down would eventually take us to single digit.
By when?
I wish I could tell you that, but I can only say that we're on the right path. That the interest rate regime we have today is probably the lowest I have actually seen for all the years that I've been in this industry.
Yeah, and our spread, which is the difference between interest rates and that's the lending rates and the prime rates and the lending rates is one of the highest. But you have mentioned
I think all of that is kind of crashing in. With those spreads are reducing, and it's in the right direction. Yeah.
Okay. It's 5 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. Apologies for bringing you the Joy Business Minute quite late. We'll take it now. Then we'll say hi to a few of our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We are with Alhassan Andani.
Hello, good morning. Karen here with the Joy Business Minute. The Consolidated Bank Ghana, CBG, says it has paid some 2 billion cedis to depositors, including microfinance and savings and loans companies. This development, according to CBG, should help deal with liquidity challenges in the financial sector. The outgoing country director of the World Bank, Henry Kurali, has assured his support for government for its reforms in the financial sector. The central bank in the last 2 years has been involved in a cleanup of the sector, which has seen a number of commercial banks and over 300 microfinance institutions' licenses revoked. The FDA says it has begun engagement with producers of alcohol beverages to find an innovative way of advertising without attracting minors. This will include a regulation on the use of celebrities as brand ambassadors for their products. And scientists from around the world are meeting in Germany to improve ways of making money from carbon dioxide. They want to transform some of the carbon dioxide that's overheating the planet into product to benefit humanity. And that'll be all for your morning's update. Join me again at 3:06 for more.
Hey, Kwame, what's up here? My brother, my wife has been diagnosed with cancer. What? My brother is here with kidney disease too. Oh, yeah.
Do you know the World Health Organization estimates that over 16,000 new cases of cancers are diagnosed annually in Ghana, and kidney diseases account for 10% of all medical admissions to Kolebu?
But thanks to Glycocritical Illness Plan, GSIP, I have spent over 20,000 Ghana cedis on my younger brother's disease. Yeah. What is GSIP?
Glycocritical Illness Plan, GSIP, provides you with financial support when diagnosed with any critical illness or dread disease such as cancers, strokes, kidney failures. Speak to GlycoLife today on 0302 218 500 for your GSIP policy. It is definitely in our interest to survive. GlycoLife, we cushion you for life.
At Afrodan, we believe that many of the problems people have with their health is as a result of the way they sit. In other words, your chair can kill you. Here's Dr. Marcus Mann of the Chiropractic and Wellness Center.
What you have to remember is that the spine is the lifeline to your body, and posture is the window to that spine. Now, posture is affected by your daily activities and habits like sitting. That's why at the Chiropractic and Wellness Centers, we recommend what I believe to be the best chairs available for preventing not only subluxations, but also other health problems that you may not be aware of. And that's Rabami and Mobilex chairs. Unfortunately, on a daily basis, I have to correct the effects of this poor sitting habit in our businessmen and businesswomen. Always remember, optimal spine equals optimum health.
So, for the sake of your health, buy Rabami or Mobilex chairs from Afrodan. We are on the first floor of the Swansea Shopping Arcade. Telephone 663-085.
May the odds be in your favor this soccer season for some cool chop from media. This no be bet and hopo. It be definite win. No kululu. Starting from 1,599 Ghana cedis, buy any media AC and get a free fan. Buy a double door fridge for 749 Ghana cedis. Chill your drinks and keep your food fresh. And in addition, get a free blender. Cooking just got better with just 649 Ghana cedis for a gas cooker and a free toaster plus so much more. My sister, my brother, the odds are definitely in your favor with Media Soccer promo, affordable prices, and so many gifts. Umpeoya, forget BBR. Visit our showrooms and authorized resellers across Ghana.
My name is Kwame Sefakai, and most of you know me as a media personality, but I am also a family man. The UMB mobile banking app, UMB Speed App, saves me so much time by letting me do almost all of my banking transactions on my phone. The cardless withdrawal feature allows me to withdraw cash from any UMB ATM without an ATM card. I can also pay bills, transfer money, request for a loan, invest money, and so much more. So now, I can spend less time at the bank and more time with the ones I love. Bank anywhere and anytime with a UMB mobile banking app, UMB Speed App, and get the time to do what you love most. Download the UMB Speed App from your Android, iOS, or Windows phone today. Call 0302-633-988 for more information. UMB Speed App, Digibank, let's go!
10 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. I am Daniel Dazi. We're here in studio with Alhassan Andani. He's Managing Director for Stanbic Bank. He's also the President of the Ghana Association of Bankers, GAB. Now let's talk about GAT, the Ghana Amalgamated Trust. Was it a good idea?
Well, it's a good idea. I mean, again, I always say that if you look at what they call ABSA, ABSA stands for Amalgamated Banks of South Africa. So there's a history for it. It's a good idea.
What about the mode of financing it?
Well, the mode of financing it now is coming from government, and the whole idea is once you capitalize these banks and it does well, then government would offload it into the stock market roll back some of the money and generally have a very profitable bank that will pay dividends either to itself as a key shareholder, or they will let off the shares on the market for other market participants to pick up.
The initial idea was private pension funds, and that was resisted a bit by, organized labor and what have you. Would that have been a great way to finance it?
No. So for those of us who were part of the conversation in the initial stages, we always thought that the pension route would be problematic because, you have different pension, trustees who have different ideas of how to safeguard their the funds of their clients, and therefore asking them to put it in a gut by fiat was not going to be possible. And I'm not surprised it didn't kind of work that way.
So government funding, it comes back really to government's borrowing, doesn't it? A lot of people complain that government is doing too much of that.
It's a purpose. If the purpose, as I said, is to ensure that we can pull these banks together and create another big local pole of banking, Ghana Commercial Bank, CBG, supported by GATT, and really bring it to market and make it a top performing bank, ultimately this would pay for itself. So this is not a debt that would not pay for itself. This is something that would pay for itself with the right governance and structures around it.
So you're looking specifically at the GAT vehicle, but I'm talking about government's borrowing in general. Would you say that government is borrowing for production or for consumption?
Again, I look, these are very carefully choreographed programs that government runs, and I think we all know we kind of benchmark it with our GDP growth and ability to debt service levels and all the ratios. What we should all be concerned about is where these borrowings go and how productive those ones are. So again, it's for all of us to look at, but most borrowing by governments around the world is not uncommon. It's just how we apply it, police it, and make sure that they can self-liquidate.
So if I borrow for Maslock, am I being productive or is consumption?
Again, I wouldn't say that I am an expert in the mechanics of Maslock and what they do, but to the extent that you are putting people to work and ensuring that whatever you lend to them, they put it to work and return it. Sometimes it's not, the intent is good, but it's the prosecution of the intent that we have the problems. Because Maslock are not gifts. They are things that you give out to people who ordinarily would not be in the financial loop to get into production and to make efforts to bring it back. So it's just that last leg which we need to intensify and make sure that, because you need to circulate it again. You need to get back to others who didn't benefit. So it's the last leg of recouping it where we fall short.
Now, there's always a fear that government borrows more in an election year, and it's a trend, actually. We've seen this. Are we going to see, if we are to see that, will we see the lending rates go up again?
Look, I think we're coming off from an IMF program, which IMF program, at least for those of us who've been, and the fiscal impacts us as banks. We know that one of the principles that has been enshrined in the just ended IMF is a fiscal discipline, and we expect I think that to be held. Within election years or non-election years, there are consequences now for borrowing above the 5% threshold and all of that. And again, we've seen this play, whether it's under NDC or MPP. The consequence of it is now for all Ghanaians to know. So you really don't gain anything if you go back to the bad old ways. But part of the principles or part of the conclusions of the recent IMF program was that governments will hold a tight fiscal line, and we expect that that line will be held election or no elections.
Another part is also digitization, which is very needed, particularly for lending rates and what have you. Is the bank enforcing the requirements of TINs and Ghana Post GPS addresses, for instance?
Oh, yes. I mean, especially as we ourselves are going digital, anything that kind of enables us to see the client in one platform, your TIN, your postal address, and any other, your national ID, any other data that can point us to the right person, that improves identification, improves your personal market lending and products, and we participate in that.
So currently, if I go to Stanbic Bank, I'll be required to have a Ghana Post GPS and a TIN?
Yes.
Are you facing any challenges in that rollout?
No, these days you can log in, and I think within a short period you can get a TIN generated for you, a TIN generated for you.
I'm asking for the Ghana Post GPS because, for instance, with the National Identification Authorities exercise, they said that people were coming with addresses that were not really their homes.
That's tough. I mean, I'm sitting there and saying we hold data, at least the banks hold data for the 2.5 to 3 million people that bank with us, and that data is clean data. So we could just be a pool for the national ID to come and plug in and register those that we've already collected authentic data on.
That's brilliant, if you ask me. You're still live on the Super Morning Show, Joy 99.7 FM. 16 minutes past 9 here on your Super Morning Show. There's so much that we want to cover. I'm going to say a name and see the man's reaction. Pishegulana.
Pishegulana, yes. Listen to you calling me Andani, Alhassan, they're going to come and fight you.
All right then, there's all of that we have to go into. There's also another very interesting topic that we'll be looking at, and your questions as well. All of that before 10 a.m. But before we move off of the economy, what's the way forward for the sustainable stabilization of the Ghana cedi?
Exports. Ghanaians should avert our attention to anything that we can package and sell externally. That is the only thing that is sustainable. And participating, we're exporting oil and gas. What is our local participation and retention of those dollars? We're exporting gold. What is our local participation and retention of those dollars? We can export vegetable. Anything we can package and export, we got to do that. That's, for me, the only sustainable, solution to the Ghana cedi depreciation.
But you see, we are exporting. We had a trade surplus last year. So where are we failing in that area?
Well, the trade surplus is just the narrow range. If you look at everything else that you do with foreign currency, your demand for foreign currency is still much more in excess of your total supplies of it.
So is it promotion? Is it standards of financing? What should we do differently?
It's a choice. We normally, I always say that the imports and consumption is an easier choice, and people go there. Producing for export is a tougher choice, but more sustainable, more profitable. And we are more reluctant to take those tough choices, make those tough choices. So I think for whatever incentives government can put in, promote and encourage people to make the tough choice of going into export-oriented production and services, we should do so.
You say it's a tough choice. Have we done enough in going in that direction?
I wouldn't say we've done enough. If we had done enough, we'd have enough foreign currency, but we haven't. We still are very not efficient in the commodity sector. I mean, share, for example. Share is still an area that is to be developed. Cashew is still an area to be developed. We still have a lot of horticultural exports. Ghana is only 6 hours away from Europe. We should be filling the European markets with green vegetables. We even import vegetables from Burkina Faso. That's not acceptable. So those are the kind of the choices that we got to make. Also reduce our consumption of, Ghana is all rice country. We should grow the right varieties, clean it in the right way, package it and position it in the right way so that we can eat local. That could be done. I know people often say that, every time we come to export, we say rice. But it's similar for maize, for all other things that we eat. We can literally produce most of them here. We still import large volumes of meat and meat products. We could do something about it.
Interesting enough, our biggest import area is machinery. It's not just food or these other things. So that is where the challenge lies, isn't it?
For me, if it is machinery, that is great. What type of machinery? If it is just machinery, which is vehicles for you to drive around and pour fuel in, which is foreign exchange, that's not the right machinery. If it's a machinery to expand domestic manufacturing, then yes. If it's machinery to dig up a lot more gold, a lot more bauxite, a lot more manganese, that's positive. So it's again the type of machinery. If it's machinery that we just bring in for luxury stuff, then we have to be careful and again further dissect that import basket to be sure that it is in the right segment, which is going to spur on production, which is going to increase domestic consumption and exports.
So how do we properly position Ghana Exim Bank to lead this charge?
Well, I have views around Exim Bank, and I'd rather not.
Well, what are those views? You're curious.
Well, look, Exim is about. Well, it depends upon the objectives of. Exims is all about managing your inventory, making sure that firms have inventory management systems, long-term inventory management systems to keep them in production. So if you look at the mature economies where Exims are, they actually ensure that these massive manufacturing enterprises who distribute globally keep going because the Exims have structures that enables them to evacuate inventory and keep those lines going. Ours is the reverse. We haven't even got any surpluses. So how is Exim going to start to bring about those surpluses? Is it the role of Exim? Is it the role of equity participation in domestic firms to give them the leverage and the time to mature? Those are for me a bit confusing.
Some describe it as a bridge because your sector does not give long-term financing.
What firms need is equity. Not loans anymore. But banks can give enough loans. But again, if you're talking concessionary loans, fine. But is that efficient? I'm not sure. But for me, if I'm going to give concessionary loan, I must well give you equity, so that I can stay in there for as long as you mature. Then I can even get a better return by putting you on a better pedestal. No firm grows on 100% loans. Whether it's loan from Exim, loan from a bank, you need equity. You need equity that gives you that patient build-up, to market maturity. And then that's why the return on equity is the highest. The return on equity is the highest because they stay in the business over a longer period of time. They are the last, to bear the risk, and therefore the highest return is accrues to equity. So if I look at private sector in Ghana, what private sector in Ghana needs is more equity. And we are the history of capital formation in this country is very shallow. We don't have depth in capital. So if you look at the stock exchange where you could go and raise capital, again, these are all market practices that we need to build. But any government structure that comes in here should look into a guided equity structure that is well managed and given to the right industries, policed, and then you have an out clause which, you stay in a good company, you shouldn't stay more than 10 years. So between 5 to 10 years, once the company is doing well, you should find a way to lay off your equity into the private sector or into the stock exchange and then, keep the cycle going.
Interesting. However, a lot of the equity that's available on the market is not local. So we are having a lot of companies having to incorporate elsewhere.
Yeah, so that's the whole trouble. And when the equity is not local, where do the returns go?
They go abroad.
They go abroad.
Exchange rates.
So exchange rates. So that's the whole point. We got to build domestic equity in these firms.
Who leads the charge?
Look, it's a free market. It's a free market. We want to encourage the private sector. So the private sector should lead the charge. But to the extent that we've got such poor history of capital formation in this country, and government finds it wise to set up an Exim, to set up a government infrastructure fund, and all of those funds should be managed in a manner that they are equity in structure, with tight management, with a clear exit plan so that you can roll this over.
So with the Exim, back to the Exim footing, are we putting the cart before the horse?
Again, this has gone through careful thinking. I don't know the methodology. I've followed the Exims that have emerged from the developed worlds, and what I've seen them do is to enable critical industries manage inventory. So you don't shut down because your inventory is piling up. So Exims will help you to evacuate that inventory. They have the depth of capital to be able to buy it off you, then lay it off through market structures around the world. Anything else, for me, I'm struggling to understand how it's an Exim. And I'd say that if it was, then we should start from where the MITs of this world, the Minister of Industry and whatever in Japan started off, where most of these Japanese firms were helped, in a structure that allowed them to grow, that allowed them time to settle and to become world-class producers of goods and services. That's what we need. And, for me, I need patient capital to support local firms to do that. Banks in Ghana will give you loans. Yeah, it may be high-cost loans, but you really need an equity base upon which to do any kind of decent business.
Interesting thoughts there. It's 25 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show. Enjoy 99.7 FM. Our guest this morning is Alhassan Andani. Now, the Total AFCON is on, and EcoBank and Visa are bringing you loads of excitement this season. Win an all-expense paid trip to Cairo to watch the game, or give your son or daughter a lifetime opportunity to escort sporting heroes to the pitch. Get your card game on by using EcoBank Visa cards to make payments on POS terminals and online every time, and win. It's that simple. Up your game on payments by using your EcoBank Visa prepaid, debit or credit card and stand a chance to go to Egypt. Be among the thousands of participants who will walk away with free DSTV installations, Visa prepaid cards loaded with cash, premium Visa souvenirs, data and more. Go on, use your Visa cards to pay for your shopping, fuel, dining, saloon visits and more. Pay securely with your EcoBank Visa card on POS terminals and online. Game on. This Total AFCON season brought to you by Visa in partnership with EcoBank, supported by DSTV and the Gaming Commission of Ghana. EcoBank is the Pan-African bank. Get your card game on. Now, Roverman Productions, in partnership with Joy Prime, Joy FM, and National Theatre, presents a brand new original Igbo White play. This is one that you love, Mr. Andani. It's titled I Want Your Wife at the National Theatre on the 6th, the 7th, the 13th, and 14th of July 2019 at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. each day. Tickets are available at Joy FM and our usual outlets. You may also want to buy our tickets through Roverman Productions payment platforms. Details are on its website, rovermanproductions.com, and on social media platforms. Buy your tickets for I Want Your Wife now. Roverman Productions, be the difference. Webster University is an American-based university. It's an American university based in St. Louis, Missouri, with international campuses in 9 countries around the world, including Ghana. Apply in June and get up to a 30% automatic scholarship. We are located in East Legon, off the Lagos Avenue behind Media Pharmacy. Call us on 054-012-0869 or 054-012-0849 or visit our website webster.edu.gh. So coming back to my guest in studio, Alhassan Andani. This is one of my favorite parts of the interview because we've been referring a lot to government and what government must do, how government must lead the charge. But many professionals have shied away from getting involved with government for fear of being given a political tag. What's the effect of this political tagging on Ghana's growth and development?
I don't think it's good. You know, governments must attract professionals who just want to do a great job, but they're not politicians. Yeah.
Have you ever had to make that choice?
No. So far, I've been employed in the private sector all through. I've had 1 or 2 interactions with the public sector.
So you've never had to step away from maybe an offer because you will be tagged politically?
I have.
You've had to?
Yes.
Under which government?
Well, I wouldn't say.
Wow. Was it a tough choice for you to make?
Yeah, they're tough choices because, you know, you want to contribute a quota, but, you know, you think you have the skills, you know, you've got an energy and passion, but
they'll say you are party A.
You're party A or party B. We should drop that. People just want to do a great job for this country. And we should allow them to do that. Politicians are I mean, if you look at the US or any of those developed democracies that we are trying to emulate, the hard political core are always there, but they bring in professionals every now and then to do specific things, achieve them, and move on. You know, so we should move into that
into that era.
Yes.
What would it take for us to move into this era?
For professionals to be professionals and politicians to be politicians. Don't straddle the two.
What does that mean?
Call a spade a spade. So if you're a politician, you've asked me to give you advice, I will tell you exactly as it is. And, you know, if you don't do it as I say, then I walk out on the job. Then it means I'm being professional. But if you will condone because that is what is politically expedient, that's not a job you're brought in to do. The politicians do what is expedient. But when you are brought in as a professional, you do what is professional. And you outline what you want to do. And if they are not doing it, you either tell them to relieve you of the job or you resign. And if you then want to be a politician, you can say you are a politician, and therefore your professional views can have the color that you want it to have. But if you still just want to be a technocrat in your area, and there's a job to be done and government wants you to do that, you should. Even simple committees that you are asked to come and serve on a committee, just because it is within a particular regime, you can be taxed as such. We shouldn't do that. There are not too many professional and technocrats to go around, and we need them. So we should free them up to do what they know how to do, and they should be truly professional, ethical, and make sure they give the right advice, hold the advice up, and ensure it's implemented the way they want it. And if it is not, they should let the public know, because everything we do will be in the public interest anyway. What the politician is trying to do is in the public interest. What you, a technocrat, are brought in to do is in the public interest. So just hold the public interest, again, sacrosanct.
So have you had to, again, offer advice and get disappointed because it's not taken?
I should say in the last few years, most of the advice we've offered as an association, as bankers, have been taking. And, it's quite invigorating to see that things that you advise, happen. And it just gives you that more energy and passion to want to see things done.
So perhaps one day we'll see Alhassan Andani as a finance minister.
I'm enjoying the job I'm doing. I want to be...
Because you remember Margaret Manakachwe?
Yes.
She's finance minister.
I know Margaret. I work with her in Barclays.
Yes. Does she talk to you sometimes about you?
Oh, I see her sometimes. Not often. She's a very busy woman now.
Of course. I mean, does she talk to you about sometimes, serving in the public sector and how great?
No, we haven't had that discussion.
Okay, Alhassan Andani is our guest here. Let me leave my questions now and come to your questions, you listening. Kwame from Lakeside Estate says, Daniel, please ask him why bankers are not paid well, especially those at the lower ranks or grades. Also, ask Mr. Andani why banks resort to a lot of contract workers who are laid off after a year or two to join the pool of unemployed. So this is two questions. Why are bankers not paid well? This is coming from
I don't think I don't think I'd buy into that question. If we were to take the banking industry as a segment and look at our average salary across all bands, and juxtapose that in the public sector or private sector, we pay well. We sit in a very decent quartile. I.e. for analogous grades, for parallel grades, within this, if we take the salaries, we sit very well in those systems. So I want to understand where he's asking. The other question was...
okay, I have a follow-up on that one. Because if you take the salaries of maybe a grade, but if you strike them against the number of hours worked, how much are you paying your workers for per hour?
For those in managerial grades, we don't pay overtime. For those who are not in managerial grades, we pay them overtime. So quite apart from your salary, which is quite decent, if I were to compare it with other salary bands in the wider economy, if you worked extra hours and you were not in a particular managerial grade, we pay you extra hour duties. Extra hour allowances, which is quite significant.
And that will lead us to the next point of contract workers.
Look, contract workers is about us doing what is core banking and leaving what is not core banking to others to do and to develop those sectors of the economy as well. So, and again, that comes on to even the future of banking. What are our customers telling us? Our customers are telling us they want you've been very busy the whole day and you want your banking done whilst you're here. So we need to find modes to get you to transact at your location. So the whole old habit of coming to a bank or driving to a particular branch, queue up and get things done for you, fill forms, is gone. We need to find, all these smartphones that you have, you want to do all your banking on it. So what kind of people do we need now to deliver that kind of banking? And what do we do with the old structures that we had? So there's a kind of retraining and all of that we try to do in order to meet what our customers want, not what we want.
So this is a pet question I also have.
Yeah.
Is brick and mortar banking becoming extinct?
Is becoming endangered. I wouldn't say extinct. We probably would find other interesting things that clients can get in there and do, but not to do what you've often done, gone to there to deposit cash, take cash, fill forms, and make requests. No, now you can do all of that on your own smartphone. But we could find other things for you to get into those locations to do. They could be business centers, incubation centers, but would they be in the configuration you saw it 10 years ago? Certainly, I can tell you not. They wouldn't be.
So whatever be the case, banking is about to change.
It's changed already. It's changed, not about to change. It's changed significantly.
Okay, let me take Paul from Brekusu's question. He says, Dan, kindly ask Mr. Andani why some of the banks are wittingly and strategically laying people off after meeting the MCRs, that's minimum capital requirements. Is that the best way to give value to the shareholders? Kindly ask again, what changes are being made to the courses offered at the banking college to meet current banking trends? So let's take the first one, strategically line off. And we know that GCB, for instance, has laid off some staff for failing SSC subjects.
Again, it's about qualification. I did say that when people come in, they must be qualified to do what they have been recruited to do. So if there was any opportunity or, there were times that you brought in people who were not qualified and you are screening, again, that error should not have been made in the first case. But in terms of strategically laying off people, no, I would say that for me, what I see is just responding to client needs. I mean, our human resource management policies must respond to client needs, and our clients are increasingly asking for digitized banking. And so any thing that we can do with the right people who can place the bank on the client's smart device and take him away from the rigors of travel to and from bank branches, that's what we want to do. And therefore, if we evacuate all the services that are being done in the banking halls onto a platform, onto a digital platform, we need a different skill set to do that. And therefore, I think the follow-up question, is about courses that we are running now.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking more and more to people who are giving us that digital skill set. So, and for those of us who are already in that trajectory, we are retraining our people to move into a more digital, skill sets that can meet our client needs. It's all about what our client needs. It's not what we want.
So as we transition to meet our client needs, some casualties are being made, aren't there?
There could be casualties. We have to be honest about it. There's thing about it, there will be casualties. As I said, if we are no longer opening branches, what will happen to people who are in branches? They are being retrained. So for us, you don't just get up one day and take that decision. It's something that you think about and plan and usher people into it. It's not going to happen just overnight. But 10, 15 years down the line, you want to be sure that everybody who has space to work in the bank is digitally savvy, understands how to work in a much more digitized environment, how to sell financial services in that kind of environment. Yeah.
22 minutes at the top of the hour. Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. We are taking your questions that you have for Alhassan Andani. Interesting ones coming in. What does the association think about the introduction of deposit insurance scheme? Is it true that the GOG released over 7 billion to support the merging of collapsed banks? A number of them. What could be the reason of clients of banks, fund managers like GCFM still struggling to pay its customers? That's Gold Coast Fund Management. We'll ask a number of those questions when we come back. Stay with us.
Whether you are young or old, a girl or a boy, a woman or a man, we all can help prevent malaria by sleeping under insecticide-treated net every night and throughout the night. Let's protect ourselves and our families from malaria. I'm Rebecca Kufuado. I believe and support the Good Life campaign from the Ghana Health Service, and so should you.
Good Life. Live it well. It's an everyday thing.
Nothing stops our desire to win. From being several goals down to winning the game. From the tackles, the dribbles, even the sulia before the winning goal. Nothing stops our drive. The Ghanaian game is alive. It's in all of us. The Total AFCON 2019. We were made for this.
Let nothing stop your passion. Keep paying with your Visa card or scan to pay with Visa. Ask your bank for a Visa card today. Visa, everywhere you want to be.
The Joy, Beauty and Bridal Fair, 11 to 14 July at the Accra International Conference Center, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day.
Promo way there, I had the. Some you see me momo. If you say MTN Echimachedia no, Edia two table. Brand new Samsung 65-inch UHD Smart TV. Na brand new 2019 Hyundai. And I feel 3,000 Ghana there. You should say mono. MTN momo. Still, Misaka. The journey of 1,000 smiles. Yashasya 10 years ago. And to celebrate this milestone, MTN give you away exciting prizes in the MTN Momo Attend promo. Yeah, you use Momo no. You could win one of the 2019 Hyundai i10 cars. Yes, some or Samsung Smart TVs for baby. And they up to 3,000 CDs e-cash every month. And a grand prize, 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe in the MTN Momo Attend promo. Into sign it on and they keep using your MTN Momo. Now when it big, if it's happening, I could see August every year. Only on Ghana's best network. Dial *120#. Now check your points. Terms and conditions apply. Just Momo it. We're there for you everywhere you go.
Refresh your knowledge in media sales in the 2019 African Media Sales Summit, AFRIMAS. Learn from a cross-section of experts, upgrade your sales tactics, and connect to new prospects at AFRIMAS 2019. Speakers include Emmanuel Odum, Viswam Ghana, Bright Lajekbo, PhD Ghana, Magben Edward Samoa, Prime Network Limited, Kojiwapia, BTL Africa, Maximus, Ametogo, Pop Out Ghana, Jesse Ejapong, Afiba Consulting. This year's theme, Future of Media Sales in the Media Marketplace, the prospects, challenges, and opportunities. Summit moderator, Rudy Kwache of the Rave Group. Join this knowledge conclave. Call 024-302-4552 or dial *713-3492#. AFRIMAS 2019 is sponsored by our Treasured Memories, Janet Services, Aegis Healthcare, Omada 233, and our media partners. African Media Art Sales Summit, AFRIMAS, sharing solutions in media sales.
It's 18 minutes till we wrap up here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. I am Daniel Dazi here in the studio with Alhassan Andani. He's the managing director for Stanbic Bank. He's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. I'll begin this round of listeners' questions with Augustine from Tamale's question. Is it true that the GOG has released over 7 billion to support the emerging and or collapsed banks? I think this is pretty straightforward. But then if so, what could be the reason clients of banks and fund managers like Gold Coast are still struggling to pay their customers?
I think today we had the managing director of CBG, Dan, my friend, indicate that government has started to release those bonds proceeds to them, which is good. So it's quite true that they are having the money to pay. And I'm aware of those bonds that were raised. Again, if we look at the fund managers, they're not exactly under the purview of the Bank of Ghana.
Of course.
So there probably would be a separate resolution mechanism for them. And the right regulator must be looking at that.
That's the SEC.
The SEC.
The SEC doesn't have as much power as the Bank of Ghana, but what would be your assessment of how well they are doing in managing the situation there?
Well, when you say power is within the law that you operate under. So within the law that they are allowed to operate on, they have power. So the law was given to them by government. So if they assess the risk and go back to government to say this is a risk and we want it to be resolved in this particular way, they will have the power within the law to deal with the problem that they are confronted with. Yeah.
We're about to wrap up here, but Kweku from Oyarefa wants to know what the association thinks about the introduction of the deposit insurance scheme by the BOG in addition to the cash reserve, and how that will impact on your operations.
I think the introduction of the deposit insurance scheme is long overdue. And this is really the beginning of more mature financial conversations that your deposits are insured and the levels of insurance or levels of payout in terms of failure will be made very clear. And therefore, if we were to get into a crisis like we just coming out of, it to be the choices you make or the choices the depositors make based on the banks that they take their risk with, which is what will be protected by the deposit insurance scheme. So I think that it would be a great great scheme for us to participate in and get this market to mature and take away all these resolution pressures from the physical. The other, so there's an insurance scheme that will be responsible for meeting depositors' demands when there's a failure. In terms of cash reserve, I don't know whether he's asking whether there will be deposit insurance on the cash reserve, but all of that and the modalities of implementing the deposit insurance are conversations that we've already started to have with the central bank and also the unit that has been set up to deal with that. So we'll make sure we fine-tune the modalities and get into it, I think, in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Andani, thank you very much. This is where we want to end the conversation, but we can't let you go without a question on Pishegu Lana.
Yes.
So that means you're chief of Pishegu?
Yes, I'm the chief of Pishegu.
Wow. How do you combine that with what you do?
Well, fortunately, there is a whole administrative setup, structures that looks after the affairs of the local area, and so I mean every now and then I get back there and I just enjoy it. I want to give back to society. I want to give back to the development efforts at the grassroots level, and I mean I'm learning things already in the last year that I could never have learned anywhere in business school or in corporate practice.
So I'm sure that will apply to some of the corporate governance that you do. Yeah, and for those who may not know, Alhassan Andani, like I said, Pishegu is a town near Yendi.
No, it's just an hour drive from Tamale.
It's an hour drive from Tamale.
Yes.
Okay. So that's somewhere in the middle.
That's right.
Yeah, that's somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
And so during the time of the Dagbon peace talks and the peace process, you were very much a part of it. You were very much involved.
Yes.
Yeah. And how refreshing is it for us to get to this point?
Absolutely refreshing. I mean, we have lived as a troubled kingdom for some time, and all these efforts made by everybody is very much appreciated. We now have a king around whom we can rally and see development. And I mean, those of us who've interacted with the Gombas, you should know who we are. We are very energetic. We are very passionate about everything we do. So in the shortest possible time, you will see the kingdom come back into full bloom.
Yes, and we are seeing it already. Thank you very much, Alhassan Andani, for joining us.
Thank you.
Very, very grateful. He's the MD for Stanbic Bank. He's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers. We'll take just a few messages from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
At UBA, we pay close attention to your every detail, making you feel like a VIP every time you visit us. We have the strongest financial and technological background, making us #1 in risk management. We have offices in New York, Paris, and London, and presence in 20 countries across Africa. UBA has successfully operated in Ghana for almost 15 years, with 28 branches throughout the country. Visit us today at a branch near you. UBA, Africa's global bank.
It's our game. Samsung Harvest will remain when this football season here. Samsung.
It's football season again, and the Samsung Stadium is packed with so many giveaways. With a sham like goals, buy a 32-inch satellite TV for 949 Ghana cedis, or the 55-inch ultra-high definition for 3,999 Ghana cedis, and get a satellite decoder instantly. Plus other gifts like Bluetooth speakers and even mobile phones. With our Twin Cooling Plus fridge, you win a free microwave, and buying our washing machine gets you a free iron and many other gifts. Take advantage. Score big with the Samsung Soccer Passion promotion. Visit a Samsung store or authorized reseller near you now.
Samsung, our passion, our game.
Nothing stops our desire to win. From being several goals down to winning the game. From the tackles, the dribbles, even the Sulia before the winning goal. Nothing stops our drive. The Ghanaian game is alive. It's in all of us. The Total AFCON 2019. We were made for this.
Let nothing stop your passion. Keep paying with your Visa card or scan to pay with Visa. Ask your bank for a Visa card today. Visa, everywhere you want to be.
This is the 12th edition of the Water Africa and West African Building and Construction Exhibition and Seminar Program in Accra, and it's brought to you by Ace Event Management Limited. This program will be held at the Kempinski Gold Coast City Hotel from the 26th to 28th of June 2019. Limited exhibition space is still available, and I know you don't want to miss this. For more information, call 024-851-8390 or visit www.ace-events.com.
Morning Show.
And in 8 minutes, we wrap up today's Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, Eden Heights has 1 to 4 bedroom apartments and penthouses with the highest grades of finishing. Locates Eden Heights at West Hills, close to the beach resorts along the Atlantic Ocean, about 30 minutes drive from the airport and 5 minutes walk from West Hills Mall. Visit us at edenheights.com.gh or email sales@edenheights.com.gh or call Mavis on 050-153-1444 or 050-153-1445.